the roles of BS and PAS standards in BIM Level 2. We talked about the history and the significance of these standards so far and realized that the United Kingdom has established some standards for the framework of the projects that resulted in the standards of BS and PAS. So BIM Level 2 consists of these two standards. Also, we covered the problems and the challenges before these standards. As you can see, rework, delay, extra cost, miscommunication, and so on. And also each team used different file names and formats. So the UK government decided to fix this. That resulted in introducing BS 1192 in 2007. That was a common language used for controlling the projects. So after establishing this standard, it brought order to the chaos and organized the existing information in the projects. If we want to dive into deeper details about BS and PAS, I want to talk about the BIM maturity journey from traditional CAD to digital collaboration. As mentioned before, BIM is not only a tool or just a software, but it can be considered as a digital maturity. I want to say that the construction has moved from traditional CAD to digital and modernized collaboration. And as you can see, we show this with BIM maturity levels. We're going to start with level 0 or pre-BIM. We got 2D CAD drawings, paper-based workflows, and no collaboration. At this time, the files were used to be transformed nails. There was no standard, no rules for naming, for formats. While in BIM level 1, we got the basic structures established, like file naming via BS 1192, manual version control, and earlier organization. But at this level, the model is still 2D. But as you can see, the documents are more organized than before. But in BIM level 2, as you can see, we got collaborative BIM, discipline, specific 3D models shared via CDE, defined roles, COBs, formats. Actually, here we got a collaboration between the disciplines of architecture, structure, and MEP, and also their teams. I mean, the models are separated, but they will be integrated later. And you should know that these files are shared in CDE or Common Data Environment. And this is where the real collaboration begins. And as mentioned, defined rules. We got Kobe formats that I want to talk about this later in the following sessions. But Kobe, is a smart table which helps and enables the employer to manage the construction or the building better. But in level 3, we got integrated BIM, central shared model or iBIM with real-time collaboration, IFC open formats. So at this part, there is no separated file since the entire team are working on an integrated file, and the collaboration is real time, and whatever changes they make, it will be applied real time. At this part, the boundaries between designing, construction, and execution are almost removed. This level is the final purpose of ISO 19650. And at level 4, we got digital twin, in which we got the IoT sensor connection, live operational data. In other words, the digital model shows the asset status. Getting to know with the levels, I want to talk about why BS and PAS were introduced. When the United Kingdom government mandated the BIM level 2, it introduced two documents or two standards that were BS and PAS or PAS. So the standards dictated how the information or how data it should be created and how it should be stored and saved and how they should be shared, and also defined rules for it. In the continuation, let us talk about the differences between BS and PAS. In fact, these two both are moving side by side toward one goal. But let us start with PASS, which is publicly available specification. Standards are composed to experiment the new concept practically and based on the market needs. For example, PASS 1192-2 is introduced in 2013, which is related or provided for information delivery at designing phase. And as you can see, they have fast and flexible implementation in process. While in BS or British standard like BS 1192 2007, that is related to information management, designing and construction, and its purpose is form a long-term structure, and the process is slow and rigorous development. All in all, as you can see on the screen, we got theory and order in BS, but execution and practice in PASS. And finally, after learning from their experiences, both BS and PASS upgraded into the global standard. I mean, the maturity life cycle starts from BS, then PASS, and then 19650. While the British standard specified theory and order, PASS introduced executive and practical solutions. In the following slides, we're going to talk about the details of BS and PASS. Firstly, with BS 1192-2007 is related to data structure and file naming conventions and also for foundation standard. We talked about this before, WIP, archived, shared, and so on. While in PASS 1192-2 2013, we got design and construction phase management workflows. The next in PASS 1192-3 2014, we got operation and facility management procedures and also maintenance. And the next 1192-4 that is introduced in 2014, that is officially introduced by BS, talks about file exchange or data exchange using COBE formats. And finally, PASS 1192-5 in 2015 speaks about information security and data protection protocols. Before going through CI/CD BIM protocols or BIM protocol contracts, I should say that BS and PASS are more dealing with the technical dimensions, while we got CI/CD BIM protocol dealing with the contracts and legal aspects. And COBE is a structured framework for data exchange. And in the following slides, I want to talk about how these standards organize the projects. One of the most important things that we talked about it was the Common Data Environment or CDE. That is a central hub for project information, archiving the records, approving final versions, reviewing and coordination between disciplines. And it has a workflow which enables the teams to get access to the approved final version for use. So there you can check the date and also the user who has verified it. And it is used in 19650 as well. And now I want to talk about the roles and the responsibilities in PASS. One of them is Information Manager, which is a new rule introduced to ensure correct standards and CDE usage. And as you can see, this role checks the protocols, the standards, and supervises them to ensure that everything is in accordance with these standards. Actually, and don't get Information Manager wrong, since the different with the BIM Manager, and it is a very important role, and one of the main responsibilities of the Information Manager is CDE management to ensure that the files are reviewed, uploaded, and correctly. The next is controlling documents and the permissions. That means that everyone must have access to the approved files. And as mentioned, the manager checks if the project is moving according to the standards or not, like file namings, formats. And the next responsibility is coordination or coordinating teams. Special file or a new model is published, everyone must be informed and coordinated. And finally, delivering reports and records to the client about the status of information, the project, building, the progress, and their accordance to these standards. All in all, the information manager preserves order, transparency, and reliance in data exchange workflow, somehow a supervisor for information quality. Let's see how these standards has changed the world. Actually, new happenings occurred when the projects were executed with BS and PASS. So the files started to be tracked, and teams were working on correct versions and files, and we had a decrease in reworks and errors. And the final information was executive and structured. It also enabled the clients to manage the projects better because at that time the industry had a common language. All I want to say is that BS and PASS were considered as a revolution for the construction industry because from that time on the information to be organized and also managed from designing to execution. So these two standards worked well, but were only for UK. And at that time we needed a global standard. So a global or an international version was needed. So ISO created a global framework, ISO 650, for the rest of the world. In fact, BS and PASS were rewritten and published in ISO 19650 for global use. In other words, BS and PASS can be considered as father and mother of ISO. While before BS and PASS, the projects used to be done in information chaos, BS came to standardize the files, the folders of information and data with CDE. And finally, the PASS covered the security of the information, and they both created the main framework for information management in the United Kingdom. And now they are accepted globally. And as a result, for managing the information modeling professionally, we have to start from BS and PASS in order to go through BIM level 2. And finally, ISO.